the thing you could not do the most today in a movie is the almost the redemption arc for Ilsa.
Oh, she's a good Nazi.
Right? Oh yeah,
Actually,
they're not all bad.
that's not true. Jojo Rabbit with what's his face?
Hitler?
No, Sam Rockwell.
Finally,
Watched,
finally,
watched,
I
finally,
watched. I
finally,
watched.
finally.
watched. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. I'm Milan.
And this is David, and today I finally watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
So this is the first Indiana Jones movie we've done um, on the pod.
It is. So I watched one within the last couple of years.
For the first time?
Yeah, for the first time. I had never seen. So I saw four Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in theaters when it came out. Just decided to go with someone, and it was like it was the only thing to go to. Um, and I was really into it. I liked Shia at the time, and then we turned to each other and were like, "Fucking aliens!" And I think now, having watched all these, I was saying to my wife, I was like, if you're not a Christian, like Aliens is no different than like the first one, the third one, and then I don't know how many of our listeners are believe in the religions of the thuggy people in India or whatever those people were called. Because I watched two. That, by the way, I watched two before this one because you told me it was somehow related. None of them are really related. There's a couple inside jokes from three about one, but otherwise you don't need to watch any of them to get this one. I like how separate they are.
No, I like how separate they are too. Um, I didn't think you had to watch two, but the fact that you never watched two, I thought maybe it would help you appreciate the third one more after getting through two.
And so,
Because
yeah,
yeah, go
and
ahead.
what I want to say about that is one, it's amazing how much better the opening of three is compared to two. Like,
Sure.
just miles ahead. And I wanted to watch one again before I watched three, so I could have all three fresh in my mind. I just ran out of time. My brain wasn't working well at the beginning of the week. And so I, right now, I think the three is my favorite. But that's only because my memory of one is kind of distant. But like,
Look, no. I mean, three's my favorite too. I mean, and one is really good. For people who say two is the best, I don't understand you. Please comment and tell us why you think this, because it boggles my mind on how you can watch two and think, yep, this is better than Crystal Skull. Because here's the problem with Crystal Skull, right? Like a lot of people, apart from the alien part, which I kind of see why, but it's not anything more than whatever happens in the other Indiana Jones, right? Um, the thing that people are like, oh, Crystal Skull is so unbelievable because he gets in the lead lined refrigerator and he gets blown up by the nuclear bomb. I'm like, bitch, in Temple of Doom, he flies down like a waterfall in a raft with what's her face and lives. I'm like, that is no different than getting blown up by a nuclear bomb
he does not.
inside.
He does not go down a waterfall in a raft. He jumps out of a plane in a raft and
There we go.
floats it down to a mountain.
Yeah.
It's actually more absurd. And there's constantly things that are absurd in these movies. Um, Even this one had some things that we'll go through like as it happens. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Transporter. Those got more and more ridiculous until in the third one, I believe, he drives his car up a ramp, but like the ramp flips him and it flips him and he hits the bottom of his car on a crane, on the chain hanging off a crane that knocks a bomb off of his car that's about to explode, and then he turns back and lands.
Well, it's kind of like the Fast and Furious movies too.
Oh, you fucking.
Like they keep getting more and more ridiculous. But I'll say, coming kind of circling back to the third one, is that however ridiculous the second one is, the fourth one is, the fucking fifth one, don't even get me started on that fucking thing. But just comparing the first two to the third, I felt like they kind of were a little bit more grounded with the third one.
I mean, until the end.
Compared to the second one.
Yeah, well, I mean, but once again, they're both kind of religious things that you either believe in or don't, right? I mean, I think Christianity is more familiar to you than whatever that was. And also, I mean, fucking 2 is super fucking racist. Like, all of these have a little bit
Oh,
of, like,
yeah.
all of these have a little bit of, like, that thing you can't do anymore. But, like, that one, whew.
You're talking mainly about the kid, right?
No, Short Round? No, I love Short Round. Was Short Round in 1? I can't even remember.
No. Short Round is only in 2, which is a huge, like, I expect, since that actor has kind of had a comeback since Everything Everywhere All at Once, I
Uh-huh.
completely expected him to make a cameo in 5. Never does. Very sad.
He's the best part of 2.
No,
Like,
he's
awesome.
100%. 100%.
I mean, and so just to do 2 real quick, because I don't know if we'll ever get around to doing it. We can. But starts off really bad. I mean, it does have...
We're gonna get crucified because people love Temple of Doom.
I've never heard anyone say that. But it starts off pretty bad, although you have Jean-Claude Van Damme's adoptive father from Bloodsport in the movie, which is great.
Can't believe you made that connection.
Fucking love seeing him. And then it just, like, I think what happens that I thought was weird is, like, there's this thing they're in Shanghai, and then they just happen to end up in India because of the plane. And then it's like, oh, we're just on an adventure because we happen to land in this village. And it's like, what? That's the movie? Like, all that happenstance. I will say, though, both 2 and 3, towards the end, Harrison Ford lives because there's a 4 and 5, but I'm still tensing up, like, oh, is he gonna make it? You know what I mean? So, like, you still got Spielberg fucking directing the shit out of this thing. It's
Right.
just the story for 2 is super weak, and it doesn't, I didn't like it that much.
And I feel like there's some slow parts about it too. And I think we'll move into discussing the plot of 3 now. But just as a good transition, I felt like there were points in Temple of Doom that you could just fast forward through to get to, like, a better part. And I feel like in 3, it's always there. It's always building momentum, and the pacing is just so good in 3 that and the jokes are funnier in 3 too. And we'll talk about those in a second. So let's start with 3.
Well, yeah, well, and I will say I thought 2 was well paced. I didn't get bored throughout it, and
Oh.
I wanted to finish it. I mean, I think the dinner scene is part of the part where I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, that's only for comedy, and it doesn't really work to me.
For me, the ending is badly paced because it felt like you just kept going back and forth between.
Well, it
Well,
did feel
now
like
she's captured, he's captured, blah blah blah.
it did feel like it kept ending, right? Like, they got away. No, they didn't get away. They got away. Oh, now we're on the bridge, and he has to cut it. Like, yeah, too many endings. So one thing, getting into 3. So apparently, this is Steven Spielberg's favorite of the franchise, and it's probably the first 3, but it's probably still of all of them.
Good.
So, and then he said he made this movie for 2 reasons: to fulfill his 3-movie obligation to George Lucas and to atone for the criticism from the previous installment, Temple of Doom. And apparently he had to drop out of directing Big and Rain Man to do this movie.
Good. Because I'll tell you why good. Because Big and Rain Man still ended up being great movies. And I don't think this one would have been a great movie if he wasn't the director.
Yeah, this movie has a feeling of being like, it reminds me of the first of the new trilogy for Star Wars. They're like, let's go back to what people love. You know what I mean? Let's just do it again.
Right. So opening.
Nazis and Christian artifacts. Let's do it.
I mean, it's a winning combination. The opening to this is probably one of my favorite openings of all time in all cinema. One of them, not the most favorite, but one of my most favorite, top 5. And it opens up where it's like you think it's so much like it's tricking you at many times during this opening. At first you think you're following this like excavation troop like in the desert, and then you're like,
Like
oh,
Boy Scouts.
it's Boy Scouts, exactly. And
Yeah.
then you're following this kid who finds his way into a cave, and then you think he's landed upon Indiana Jones uncovering another artifact, and whoever they got the guy to play this guy, the what would you call him, like a Tomb Raider, right? Whoever he got, it
Laura Croft.
looks like Harrison Ford from the nose down, because he's like with the hat and tilted down, and then I love this, he raises his head, and at the same time as you're like, oh, that's not Indiana Jones, Indy's friend from Boy Scouts is like, Indy, we gotta get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, holy shit, this is a back thingy.
Whew, a back thing. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
like what, 1912 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another smart thing they do is they don't show the date until River Phoenix grabs the cross, gets back out of the cave, makes a noise, and then he's on horseback, right? And he has this really funny line when he gets out. He's like, "Oh, everybody's lost but me." Like, I'm the only one who knows what we're doing here.
River Phoenix, bless his soul, says it in such an Harrison Ford way. Like all of River Phoenix's line delivery and mannerisms are what we think of Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones today. It's so great. Like it's and I don't think any Harrison Ford is such a hard person to imitate. But the way River Phoenix does it is so good.
So apparently,
And this whole thing is building up to like the tropes of what we know of Indiana Jones.
yeah. So apparently, Harrison Ford worked with him on Mosquito Coast, and he told Spielberg to hire him. There's a young Indiana Jones, and Spielberg asked River Phoenix to do it, but River Phoenix is like, I don't do TV anymore. And so Sean Patrick Flannery from Boondock Saints is the young Indiana Jones.
Oh, that's funny.
I
I don't think that did very well.
It's a TV show. Yeah, probably not. It's the River Phoenix thing is really interesting because for a while, I guess the only thing I had seen him in was what's the movie with the boys in the body?
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me. It was originally called The Body, I think. And like I didn't like that movie, but I thought he was great in it. He was great in this too. You see his brother Joaquin. Joaquin's one of the best actors right now, but Joaquin has this kind of weirdness about him in the roles he chooses.
Wait. I'm sorry. What are you talking about? You're talking about this movie? You're talking about where do you see Joaquin?
No, I'm saying his brother's Joaquin. Did you know that River Phoenix is the brother of Joaquin Phoenix?
No, I did. I guess I misunderstood you. Go ahead.
So it would be interesting. It's like like the more I see River Phoenix, the more sad it is to have missed out on that career. Because people say that all the time, like, oh, he would have been vying for like a lot of Leo parts. And like, the more I watch him, this is a very small part that he has in it. He's still really young.
Yeah.
We should like eventually do like My Private Idaho and like stuff like that, like stuff sort of toward the end of his career.
Sure.
But you can see it even in this, right? He's basically a child actor, but he's like pretty flawless in that. Like you can see the child actors that are really good, and then you can see the ones that are like, you're probably not going to do this after you turn to be an adult.
Well, this is a very specific thing, all right? Like this is a very specific way of acting. First, he's playing off of a character that we know and love very well, even back then, right? So you have to keep on the path of Indiana Jones. And then it's kind of slapsticky. Like you have the sequence in the train car and the circus train cars going from train car to train car. I gotta stop saying train car. And each different train car is like it's building on the character of Indiana Jones. So first, if I can remember, I think you have the line, it belongs in a museum, right? Which is very honed in on this one specifically, this Indiana Jones. He says a lot, but of course he says it throughout the entire series. Um, what would be the next one? Would the next one be the snakes?
Yeah, the snakes. And as I was saying, so I was saying to you before we started that when he's in the cave with the friend starts freaking out because he has a snake, right? And he grabs it and pulls it off of him. You're like, oh well, he's scared of snakes in the first movie, so that'd be interesting to see. And then they immediately show you he like falls into a pit of snakes. He's that huge cobra that like almost bites him. So I mean, whether that would be enough to be the impetus for why he's now afraid of snakes, it's like that's kind of what the movie is doing.
I kind of do love that later on you learn that his dad has just as much a fear as rats as he does of snakes, but you'll never know why. I guess you can imagine he fell in a giant pit of rats one day.
So that's actually put in there because of From Russia with Love. They did that
Oh,
because
really?
Sean Connery had a scene in that where he's apparently dealing with uh, allies are fleeing the Russian embassy and a mischief of rat cuts off their escape route or something. That's what's a mischief of rats. Is that what a group of rats is called? Is a mischief?
That's cool. Um,
You guys learned
so
something here, unless that's wrong.
so yeah, well, this podcast is all about learning things. Um, the the so is that implying that James Bond is Indiana Jones' dad?
They're I think that was like kind of an inside thing Spielberg had. Like he wanted Connery to do this because he's like, you're sort of the father of this character. If the start of 2 is so weird because he's dressed up like James Bond,
Yeah,
and he's in like that whole scene is so fucking James Bondish.
yeah,
It's
and he's
funny.
undercover too.
This movie, Last Crusade, reminded me so much as like, is this what National Treasure based its entire shit off of? Is like, let's do the
Right,
Last Crusade over 2 movies because that's what it felt like. Um,
3 movies.
so the snakes, and then there's a third one. I thought there was a TV show. Is the third one coming?
Oh fuck, dude! I continue. Whatever. I didn't know you were gonna stop and question me about it. Go ahead.
So after that, we get the whip scene, and this is like, where he gets proficient with the whip. Although you pointed out the chin thing.
Yeah, so it's a real it's a common thing to know that Harrison Ford had a big scar on his chin due to a carpentry
There was
accident when
it was a car accident.
it was a car accident.
Yeah.
Whatever, carpentry, car accident, same thing. And so just to like canonically tie in Harrison Ford's real life skin blemishes, they added the cut of the chin and how the character got the cut.
So this is another thing I wanted that we talked about earlier when we were basically doing the pod before the pod and ruining the content was this also reminded me a lot of Solo because my major problem with Solo, I thought it was a pretty good movie except for there was so much winking at the camera like, oh, okay, your name is Solo. What, your name is Chewbacca? I'm going to call you Chewie. You know what I mean? And like it became too much where the whole time they're let's shit like look at how clever we are tying all these things together that and showing you how they happen. And it didn't work in that, and for some reason it works in this. And I think it's a very hard thing to
Maybe
get right.
maybe it's because they didn't spend the whole movie doing that, and they spent the first 5 minutes of doing that.
Yeah, that's
And
true. Yeah.
also it's like you're building up. I think what really works in this whole movie is that you're building up expectations that never get met.
What do you
So
mean?
you think the guy who's not Indiana Jones is Indiana Jones, right? You know he has a fear of snakes, but he doesn't have a fear of snakes yet. You think he's gonna run to his dad, and his dad is gonna like kind of save the day, and then he doesn't.
Yeah, I thought his dad was going to come out there and tell the sheriff off.
Right, right. And then you see the white carnation guy, and then the next time we see adult Indiana Jones in this movie, because of the transition with the hat, he's getting the fuck beat out of him. So it's like he's I don't know, the expectation is just like building it up, and then letting us down, but like in a good way.
So I thought the White Carnation guy was going to be the big bad for the entire movie. I thought the fake Indiana Jones was going to play a major part in the rest of the movie, and we never see him again. That is like a cool missed opportunity to have, like to have
Is
that
it?
guy.
Is it because that guy is just there to show what Indiana Jones starts to want to be, right? But want to be like a good version of that. And then the White Carnation guy is like, it's just tying off in the beginning of the movie when he's like, he gets the cross back, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, the whole thing of like, I'm stealing these things for a museum, and you're stealing these things for a private collection or to sell or whatever. It's like,
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why they didn't do that. I'll tell you. It's because it would be too James Bondish, and maybe they were getting away from that because of the second one. Because that whole thing where it's like you have the person from his past being the main bad guy at the end is very golden eye, and maybe that's not what they wanted to do.
well, because all of the sort of, I once again, I don't remember one that well. I'm gonna rewatch it soon, but like all of the, 2 and 3, the opening is sort of disconnected from the rest of the movie. So like the whole opening of this, from a childhood and then showing why he gets the cross is completely disconnected from the rest of the story. Well, not as much as 2, because like, he gets the cross, his dad doesn't help him out. There's like we see how he gets his hat, and we see the sheriff not helping him. But like, I expected the dad to come out, and it's sort of like a very great way of showing like the distance in their relationship, right? Like it, without
So
doing anything else, it explains like why he left and hasn't talked to him for 20 years.
100%. And this whole opening sequence, besides being fucking amazing and showing how Indy became Indy, essentially, does two things towards this movie. One, like you just mentioned, it shows the relationship of the him and his dad. And two, and this is such a little thing, and I might be making this up or looking too much into this, but there's like a magic part of the train cars, and he gets into the magic box only for it to be open and he's not in it, right? He's already at the bottom of the train running away on the tracks.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would it show that? Like, there could have been 1,000 other ways for him to get off that train, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think that despite everything that's happening in Indiana Jones in the first two movies, he's never one to really believe in the supernatural. And him knowing that the magic box has a false bottom, that's how he gets out, maybe is a way to show like, oh, he's just a very like logical person who looks past those sort of things.
Well, one thing the movie builds out, even if that little part wasn't intentional, I think it's definitely a reading of the movie. But the fact that his dad is so stuck on the Holy Grail, I think it is easy to see that it sort of has driven him away from any possible belief in religion.
Ah, I like that too. Yeah.
So, so the ship scene is cool. I mean, we sort of, the train scene's amazing, like really well choreographed. Like all of it is great.
It just I think a lot of people have a problem. I don't have a problem with this. I want to be very clear. A lot of people have a problem with the train scene because everything that makes up Indiana Jones happens in like a 5-minute period. His
That's
his
that's
his
that's
whip, his hat, his chin, his snake fear, his magic fear, everything happens in that moment, and that's what the whole character is built on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, like we don't know. I mean, once again, it's winking to the movie, to the camera, to the audience. I didn't mind it. We don't know that's his first time ever touching a whip. We don't know if that's the impetus for him wanting to use a whip. You know what I mean?
Right.
We don't know if he's afraid of snakes, because why would that little bit have, that one thing, he got out of that very quickly. So that one thing making him afraid of snakes, maybe not. Right. You know what I mean? So there are winking things to the camera, but they don't necessarily explain his entire character. The ship scene is cool, except for the fact that he jumps into the middle of the ocean and then basically the ship magically explodes and he just survives because he finds a dinghy.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation of like, who did someone rescue him? Did he have a beacon on him? Did he just swim? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just whatever. He made it out. Um, and then he makes it back to his university, and the girls at this point are swooning over Harrison Ford.
So have you noticed that they swoon, right? I can't even remember in the last movie or in the Crystal Skull if they still swoon, but they swoon a little bit less every movie because he's just getting a little bit too old for this.
I'm too old for this shit. Well, I don't remember 4. I saw 4 in 2008. I've not seen it since.
Yeah, I think they just it's a joke that the other joke about this whole movie is that he's too old for all of this. I think there's a line where it's like someone's like, "Oh," or he's like, "It belongs in a museum." Someone's like, "So do you," or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, so he's like 40. What was he? He was like 45 when he
Yeah.
made this, and which is funny. He's only 12 years younger, 12 or 14 years younger than Sean Connery. But Alison Doody, who plays Elsa, who was hot as shit in this movie, and I looked her up, still hot in 2017. The last picture I saw, she was in RRR apparently, which I still need to watch. She was 21, so that could be his daughter.
Oh
That's-
Jesus! So there was more of an age gap between her and him than him and Sean Connery.
yes,
And when he says,
like double the age gap.
so when he says you could be her father, no, her grandfather, he was right.
Yeah, and he could be her father very easily. Yeah.
Crazy.
Um. So I love he then goes into the office. He gets a package from his dad, and he doesn't even open it. Showing the deterioration of the relationship.
I don't even think he knows it's his dad. It just says it's from Venice, Italy. That's all he knows. That's because when he's in his dad's house and he sees the Venice, Italy thing, and he was like, oh shit, I just got a package from there. That's how he makes the connection.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's a little bit unsaid. So he escapes through the window. He's surrounded by guys in trench coats, which should let you know this Donovan guy is not a good person.
Yeah.
But then cuts to him, and he's like, "Oh, I hope my men didn't alarm you." And it's like, "What the fuck, guy?" Like clearly, the one dude flanked him and went behind him.
Yes, but wouldn't that just like continue on the theme of cutting our expectations to sound like they look evil? Oh, they're not evil. Oh, they are evil.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you could definitely look at it that
I mean,
way.
they basically ended up being Nazis in the end, right?
Um, they were. Well, I don't know. They're more like opportunists than Nazis. You know what I mean? So a little bit unclear.
Hmm. Well, we get to Donovan, right? And then to like throw even more suspicion on him, he has this ancient tablet.
Half a tablet.
Half a tablet. He has it, right? Which is odd. And then he has the manuscript that says, oh, there's like 2 markers, and the 2 markers point to the crescent moon, blah, 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 or whatever. And then I do love the line, oh, we have a top archaeologist to, but he went missing, so we need you to go find him. And he goes, oh, well, you got the wrong Jones. You should get my dad. And they're like, your dad was the one who went missing. And I love how that he has absolutely no interest to go after this Grail thing, which he probably, so fed up of hearing about it growing up, that the only thing getting him to go is the fact that his dad is in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, but also, that is what gets him to go. But then the next line from his boss, what is the boss's name? Walter? No, not Walter. Marcus. Yeah, the next line from his boss as they're going to his dad's house, he's like, "Why do you care? You haven't spoken to him in years. Like or I've never seen you care this much about your father."
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I mean, it's your dad, right? So you're gonna go anyways.
No, I agree with that part, obviously, but it is
unless
interesting.
unless you're telling me something about your dad, right? So you're not gonna go save your dad? Good job,
I mean,
David.
I talked to my dad this morning, so yeah, I would definitely probably go save him. but he's also not going. If he's going to Venice, it's you know, it's on a leisure trip. He's not messing with Nazis and basically Knights Templar, whatever that the Brotherhood of the
Yeah.
sword. I wrote it down, so I'll say it right when we get to that part. Um, so yeah, he goes to his dad's house. He's like, you know what? I'll take that. I'm gonna take that trip to Venice. And then next we are in Venice and we meet Elsa,
I
who
do
she
another expectation thing is like, oh, Dr. whatever Friedman or something. And we're like, well, how do we know what he looks like? And maybe he recognizes us. And then it's a very attractive woman.
yeah. And I said to you like she pronounces her name's spelled Elsa. She pronounces it more Ilsa a little bit in the beginning. Any Ilsa in a movie.
Well, yeah, but that's also how German Nazi bitches pronounce their name. So
Don't talk about her like that. I do think the one thing like the thing you could not do the most today in a movie is the almost the redemption arc for Ilsa.
oh, she's a good Nazi.
Right? Oh yeah,
Actually,
they're not all bad.
that's not true. Jojo Rabbit with what's his face?
Hitler?
No. Sam Rockwell was
No,
like a
yeah.
Nazi Sam Rockwell is a redemption Nazi.
Well, I mean, we already talked about that, right? Like
Yeah.
I said that in that episode that like a movie presents what a person is. If you feel they're redeemed, then that's the way you feel.
You know, the her saving grace is that she's not German, she's Viennan, right?
Austrian?
Austrian. Thank you. From
Vietnamese?
Vienna. Vietnamese. Okay.
Vietnamese, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No. But what I'm saying is that they were occupied by Nazi Germany, so you could say that she was brainwashed to become this, and then she kind of snapped back to her senses.
yeah, and so they're going to a library that's in a church, which that's I guess just a church that they put the library in for this. And apparently they're looking for a book that's going to lead to a tomb, but then when he gets there he's like, "No, the tomb's here." And it just starts cracking through the floor, and I love the guy who's stamping being like, "Oh, fuck, is this me making this noise? Like what is happening?"
Just
Uh
right off the bat, it's better jokes than the second one. Here's the thing: such a dramatic guy, Indiana is. He sees that we're looking for the Roman numeral 10, and he looks down at his feet. Obviously, you don't need to climb to the second story to see that, but he does it for our benefit. I have a question. When he starts breaking through the floor, where does the X go?
it marks the spot.
No, but where does it go? When he starts cracking through the floor and you see a wide shot of him like breaking through the floor, the whole X is just gone.
So I think that actually is why he needed to go up there because I was thinking about this. So when he goes up there, there's the light from the window outside hitting it, but in shots where you're close, you can't really see the X.
Oh,
I
okay.
think
It's
that
an
is,
angle thing.
yeah, I think that is why he needed to go up there. But then they go down there, and Marcus gets left up there, and there's some guys in fezzes that come
The
and
Fez
knock
Brigade.
the what?
The Fez Brigade.
Yeah,
Brigade.
I don't know if we can call them that.
We can't call them the Fez Brigade.
I don't know.
The little
So,
funny hat guys. Yeah.
by the way, a little bit of a callback is when he's teaching class, he's like, this is archaeology. You're not going to find treasure. There's not going to be no X's marking the spot. And when he gets up there, he's like, X marks the spot. The way he says it is he is thinking about the callback to what he just said a couple days ago to his students. He's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. I thought that I always think every time I watch this movie is that obviously him saying that to his class is going to come up. I always thought that comes up way later in the movie.
Oh yeah, it's a very quick, and he's like, oh shit. So they go down there.
There's rats.
They walk past this painting. She's like, what that? She's like, oh, it's the Ark. She's like, are you sure? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then the petroleum, and they find the tomb. And I didn't realize this. Maybe I wasn't paying attention enough, but that's the second brother when we find the third.
Yeah.
In the end. So the whole, the machinations of they're like, oh, well, you need to find the other half of this, to find the book, to find the tomb, to find then that'll lead us to this. I was like, I don't know. I'd probably need to watch it a couple times to make that easier to follow. Cause I was like, it doesn't matter. We're going to get to it eventually.
Here's what I don't get is how is Indiana Jones not the richest man in the world? Because if anyone had these artifacts in their possession and sold them to the museum, do you sell things to the museum or do you donate things to the museum? I mean,
He's
sh-
he seemed to
surely
be
they
giving
buy
it.
them. Okay, but he says, "Hey, for my retirement, I'd put a well here with all the petroleum, right? Like I
Hmm.
just dig a well here." I'm like, "Why don't you? You fucking moron." Like you've been to like there's like two other whole movies where you find priceless shit. And it's like you never go back to those locations.
What I want to know is, was that entire that was that petroleum was like sort of on top of the water, or was that all
That
petroleum?
was all petroleum.
They were just swimming in that?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too when you think about it because when the Nazis or the Fez guys are the Fez guys Nazis?
No, they're not. But their whole thing is a little odd too. They're not.
Oh yeah, it's like a second have you seen The Mummy with Brendan
Yes, yes,
Fraser
that's
recently?
exactly it. Yeah,
That's
or I mean,
exactly it.
basically the Knights Templar, right? Like that's kind of
Yeah.
what they are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, but when they light the fire to blow them up with all the rats and everything, they swim to the bottom of that like sewer, and the fire. If it was all petroleum, that whole thing would have been caught on fire, not just the
Yeah.
top.
So I'm almost wondering if it was just on the top. But I don't. It doesn't matter, right? So they're fucking burning rats alive. Um, and then they hide underneath, basically as like a boat almost. You know how you like in movies all the time, people will
like
hide
in
under the boat with the air
like in
pocket.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um,
Wait, so do you know a fun fact about those rats? Are those rats real? They can't be real. Or some of
uh,
them were?
half of them are, half of them aren't, and apparently it was a big ordeal to get insurance on the rats.
Ah, yeah, I could see
To get
that.
rat insurance, they had to like, yeah, it was like they were basically like, how many do you need? And they're like, well, we need, can we do 1,000? They're like, yeah, fine, we'll insure 1,000. So then the rest are animatronic. But they really fucking burned them though.
No, they did not. They
No, I
killed
don't
those?
know. No, I was
No,
joking.
fuck you. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's Friday the 13th.
Taylor's gonna be
It's
so mad.
it's Friday the 13th all over again. No, so yeah, so he etches the rest of the okay, so I like this too, right? When they find the other brother, he has the shield with the same stuff that the half tablet has. And he like makes a sketch, makes a transfer is what it's called. Um, but here's what I don't get: how does that transfer survive? He gets he jumps underwater with it. There's fire, and somehow he comes out. I love this too. Couple questions here. They come out in front of the church from like a grated sewer line in the
How did the Fezzes get out so quick, and how did they know?
yes,
Good fucking question.
yeah,
This is the best question, right? So they come out of the drain. There's a chase. There's boats. They drive through the boats. There's there's so many explosions in this movie that if MythBusters did, they'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. Like that doesn't work.
well, no, that's true. I do like if you noticed he gets on the boat and later on when they're running from the Nazis, he has a chance to get on another boat. But instead, he starts the boat,
He said
lets
not
it
another boat.
right.
He said he was like more boats. Um,
But he like learns from running from the Fezzes how to get away from the Nazis.
Yeah. The action in this movie, every single action set piece is awesome.
Oh
So,
yeah.
racing boats in the Venice Canal, apparently they had the Venice Canal from like 3 a.m. to 11 or 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., something like that. They had it to themselves. It was like blocked off.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, does that. Then the scene where he's on the boat as the boat is getting chopped up in a propeller, and he's like, tell me where my father is. And he's like, my soul is prepared. Is yours? He's like, I'll die right now. Don't care. So then they jump on the other boat and he's like, my name is Kazim. Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword is the organization that Kazim belongs to. Apparently, he auditioned for Salah in the first movie, which I forgot Salah was in the first movie, and he didn't get it, but then he was brought back for this one. Um, and
Yeah.
he's like, we're going to keep the Grail a secret. And then he tells him, your father is being held in a castle on the Austrian-German border.
Yep.
How does a member of the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword know about a Nazi hideout in Austria, Germany?
Because he's there at the end.
He is in That's supposed to be Hatay, I think, is what it's called. Which is
Yeah.
so. This movie takes place in 1938 because Hatay was a part of Syria. They were given their freedom in 1938, and then in 1939 they became part of Turkey. So the only period in which that place existed was 38, 39. So this movie, had to happen in 38.
Do you know the actor who plays Salah?
I do. I think he's just British.
Do-
John Rice Davies.
yes. Do you know what huge fucking franchise he's been in?
Is it Bond? No,
No,
it's oh well. I'm looking at it now. He's Gimli,
he's Gimli. Yeah.
which I would have never in my life
No,
known
no, I
ever.
know.
I would have never in a million years picked that. In fact, I have always been like, who is that guy? Who's Gimli? I have no idea.
It's Salah. Yeah, it's great,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. So I still have no explanation. I mean, maybe he saw the father getting taken by the Germans and maybe he overheard or this is supposed to be an organization that's sort of supernatural that they guard the cup. So maybe they just have information, but there's not a good explanation of how he knows that.
But he knows that, so we move to how to get to the German-Austrian border.
I think they just they just cut and the next scene they're driving up.
Well, they do that whole Indiana Jones thing where it's like they show like a map visual with like the traveling animation.
Oh yeah, but actually before that, there's a scene where they talk about how it's Alexandretta, which is
Yeah.
now Iskerdom,
Well, because
and
they needed the information from the rest of the tablet mixed with the information from the diary to get Alexandria.
because apparently the father somehow drew a map without knowing the starting point. So that's what they said. So then his room's been ransacked. He goes into Ilsa's room. It's been ransacked. And then she's in the bathroom completely unawares that this happened with her music on. I was like, okay, well, she's in on it. Her name's fucking Ilsa. Like, clearly.
Did you really think she's in on it? Because like she could have just been taking a long bath while her room was getting ransacked.
I mean, I'm just telling you, I wrote down, I feel like Ilsa is in on it. How does she not hear her room being trashed? And then they fuck. In a sort of like, he's a little bit aggressive way, in a way that affirmative consent 2024 you can't have. So we go to the castle.
See, hold on, I just want to point out that this is an 80s movie.
Oh, is
but
it?
It's taken place in the 40s, so it's just soaked in misogyny.
Yeah, a little bit. So we get to the castle. There's this line where, first of all, Harrison Ford doing a Scottish accent and the German guy calling him on it is hilarious because
It's funny.
If you're Scottish Lord, I'm Mickey Mouse. Apparently, the original line was, if you're a Scottish Lord, I'm Jesse Owens.
Yep. But they changed it because they didn't feel like a general audience would know who Jesse Owens is.
Jesse Owens is a better line than Mickey Mouse. But yeah, I mean, whatever. And then he says, Nazis, I hate this guy. And I was like, oh, for sure, Ilsa. Like, the Nazis are back? For sure, Ilsa is one of them.
Blue eyes, blonde hair, Nazi. 6 foot, trust fund, Nazi. No, oh man, what? So, the tapestry thing, right? He's like, this is a castle, no? You have tapestries? He goes, yes, we have tapestries. Exactly.
Yeah. So he immediately knows his dad's in there, climbs through the window. His dad hits him, and he's like, dude, what do you... He's like, I thought you were one of them. He's like, they would come through the door.
He's not even that excited to see his son. He's so worried about if he just ruined this, like, Ming Dynasty vase.
And he's like, oh, it's a fake. You can see right here.
I love the dialogue, too. He's like, I think you really hurt me, Dad. I was like, no, you know what? I'll be okay. He's like, oh, thank God. He's like, no, it's fine. He's like, it's a fabrication.
Yeah.
Talking about the vase. It's so good. Their relationship is just like so broken, and the dialogue and everything that happens is so honed in on that. Until when would you say that they're like, even when the whole castle catches on fire, they're still at odds with each other?
I mean, they're at odds until they have
Until he's shot, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they have the conversation on the blimp, but then there's the point after the tank scene where he's like, "Oh, I just needed 5 minutes. I thought I would have more time to tell him how I feel." You know?
It's not oh, well, that's true. It's not the funniest line, but I think it is the smartest, one of the most wittiest, like smartly written lines. Is that he goes, "When is the last time we had a drink and a conversation?" And he goes, "I was drinking a milkshake." And I was like, "Damn." Like that's just like that's that's so good.
Well, yeah, because it's kind of unclear. He's like, "You left 20 years ago," but like, did has he seen him since then? Because he seems to know a lot about him, right? So, like, what's the deal with that?
It would have been cool like when he was looking through his dad's ransacked place, he found like newspaper clippings about Indy's like Ark of the Covenant. Was it found? Like, oh, you know how everything he does is like top secret, right? And I know this is the only the third movie, but you have to guess that he's been on a lot of adventures that have never been in the movies, right?
Well, I mean, are you talking about Sean Connery because he's MI6, or what do you mean?
No, I'm talking about Indiana Jones. He like must have done a lot of adventures outside of Raiders and Temple of Doom, right?
Hmm.
I'm saying, but they've all been like top secret and like covered up. It'd be cool if when they were going through Sean Connery's ransacked apartment, is if he had like a book or a
No, no, yeah, I heard you.
bulletin board of like tabloids. They were like Ark of the Covenant found? Question mark, question mark. But like he's still kind of keeping track of his son's adventures through the tabloids. I think that would be kind of cool.
I mean, I don't. I mean, not to sound flippant about this, but Sean Connery's character almost comes off as like autistic, like a
Oh, because he's
huge.
so focused. Yeah. Or you know what? I think this gets I think autism and narcissism get mistaken for each other sometimes. He feels like way more narcissistic.
Well, so when I make a statement like he feels like autistic, and then I'm about to explain myself, like maybe let me do that before you're like, no, no, you're mistaken. So what I mean is, as this serial focus for his entire life on this one thing,
Yeah.
to the detriment of his wife and his family, to the point his wife, she's like, I wish she had told me that she was dying, and his like to not even caring about a relationship with his son. You know what I mean? Like that singular focus, and to the detriment of his family, and not caring about those relationships. That's what I mean. Like I think he would normally have called it like an Asperger's type thing, but
Right.
now it's just this all on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well, if
it's
if you're
he's not played that way, but it feels a little bit that way.
if you're talking about a father's unnecessary focus on his work of ignoring his family, then my father either has autism or narcissism. So,
Well, I never wanted to bring it up, but he wouldn't make eye contact with me. So,
okay.
so they get him. The Nazis break in. He's like, "You think my son was stupid enough to bring the diary?" And he's like, "You weren't stupid enough to bring the diary." He's like, I should have fucking sent it to the Marx Brothers." Is a great line.
Yeah, it's a great line.
Shoots the Nazis, and then he's like, "Don't give it to Ilsa. She's one of them. Don't listen to her." And then she grabs the diary and is like, "You should have listened to your father." And he's like, "How did later on when they're tied up? How did you know?" She talks in her sleep. And he's like, "What the really?"
Yeah, another great line to like hone like the to explain their relationship. It's like if I was Sean Connery was saying something about sleeping with her, and he's like, "Have you no shame?" He's like, "Well, better than the next man." He's like, "I was the next man."
Yeah, I mean, they're Eskimo brothers, so that's a little weird. It
That is a
also
little weird.
throws a wrench in their relationship. So he tore
I mean, she
page.
ended up being a Nazi. They can't like be too hung up on that.
The problem. Well, I mean,
Maybe it makes them even closer.
Indy was, Henry wasn't. So find out that he tore out some of the pages and gave them to Marcus, and they're like, "Oh, he's a buffoon. We'll find him." And he's like, "He's got a 2-day head start, and he is smarter than like you have no idea.
He
You'll
knows every
never find him."
language. He blends in. You'll never. Oh my god.
So it cuts to him in like a street, just not knowing what the hell he's doing,
I think it's
and
called a bazaar.
yeah. So anyway, finds Salah. I thought he was going to Greece, so I have no idea what country this is that he is supposed to be in, because I thought that's where he was headed, was Greece.
I think some Middle East country.
Well, yeah, clearly. I mean, eventually it's like Turkey. And then Salah's like, all right, you need to run. And because I did not remember Salah in the first one, I was like, did he have him run onto that Nazi truck on purpose? Like, or was that
Dude,
an accident?
how dare you
So
say anything bad about Salah?
clearly an accident because I didn't remember him in the first one, but to me, I was like confused about it.
Just what kind of foresight does the Nazis have to disguise a truck to make it look like a storefront, knowing that they're gonna run into it?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. So, um, so Elsa says to keep Indy alive, and there's this cool line that Donovan's like, "All right, whatever the doctor orders," which it plays into the end. Then they set the floor on fire. There's the whole fireplace funny thing, which is like a Scooby Doo episode, and then
I
able
never
to,
thought of it that way, but yeah.
they're able to escape out of it. There's this one part where he's like, "All right, we've got Marcus." So the Fuhrer, apparently Hitler himself, ordered that we kill the Americans right then. Um, and then the motorcycle chase is fucking great. There's this one point where he sticks a pole in the guy's motorcycle and it flips and explodes at the same time, which I don't get how that makes sense.
Looks cool.
But he then looks at his dad for approval and does not receive it and is then like hurt. You know what I mean?
I have a funny story. I watched this movie when I was a kid, and I thought it'd be funny as me and this neighborhood kid were racing. I took a stick and I stuck it in the spokes of his bicycle,
Oh my God.
and it fucking flipped him out, and it was hilarious. And I'm so surprised that it worked, but he got very badly hurt.
It's hilarious that he got very badly hurt.
No, it's hilarious that it actually, like, an Indiana Jones stunt thing actually worked in real life, but with like two 14-year-olds on a bike. So that happens a couple times, right? Like he does this super fucking cool thing and he looks at his dad, and Sean Connery is like, well, come on, let's get on with it. I always get Taylor was saying this, is that I'm always surprised to hear Sean Connery's accent because you only hear other people mimicking Sean Connery's accent.
Yeah. You're saying it's not a Sean Connery as the impressions.
No, it's more. It's like way more than I remember it.
I also just like that he's like, I'm fucking Sean Connery. I'm not putting on an accent for you. Like, this is how I talk.
Well, I mean, you could believe that he was like the son of an immigrant dad.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, my dad, I don't have a French accent. My dad has a heavy French accent.
I've heard it. So he's telling him we have to go to Berlin to get the book because it basically has the 3 clues on how to not get killed going into the temple.
Well, couldn't you remember them?
Well, he does remember them as he's dying. Like, I guess they read them again, so maybe that jogged his memory.
Yeah.
But he's like, why didn't you memorize them? And he's like, because I had the fucking book. That's why I didn't memorize them.
Yeah.
So they go to Berlin. First, it starts with a scene of Ilsa crying at the burning of books. And I was like, oh, we're rehabilitating a Nazi in this movie. That's what we're doing, right? And then the craziest fucking scene. And I saw this one point in a little meme on Instagram or Facebook or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I forgot it. And when he fucking bumps into Hitler and gets his autograph, I was like, this is bonkers.
But did you like it?
No. I mean,
no?
It's whatever. It's fine.
It's a fucking awesome scene. Because think about it. He it's like, actually, that diary is now like priceless. He could sell that diary with Hitler's autograph and become a multi-millionaire.
How'd you make your money? I sold the Fuhrer's signature Nazi memorabilia
on the book that led me to the Holy Grail.
That's true. The Holy Grail. Where's the Holy Grail? I lost it.
I lost that, but
that's not. And Adolf's signature. The guy who played him, it looked like a fucking child writing Adolf Hitler.
He
just learned cursive.
It looks. You know, I'll tell you what it looks like. It looks like when you go to Disney World and you get a character to sign your autograph book. It's like
Cinderella.
You're like going to Fuhrerland and having like some guy dressed up as Hitler signing your autograph book.
So apparently, most of the uniforms worn in the Nazi scene, were authentic Nazi uniforms that they just found an old cache of uniforms. And then there's also this story that
in quotes, found an old cache of uniforms.
yeah, they were just in some dude's like, oh, I collect. Um, and then also apparently when people were doing the Sig Heil salute or whatever, um, Spielberg told them all to have their other arm behind their back and cross their fingers so that they wouldn't be. I don't know if that made them actual Nazis or something.
There's a the crossing your fingers thing. I don't know if that like it. Okay, if you cross your fingers while you get married, does that null the marriage? Because I've heard that so many times in movies. Like, have you ever seen the Truman Show?
Yeah, it doesn't. No, it's not. It's not legally crossing fingers. Not legally. First of all, when you say your vows, you're not actually getting married.
No, I
That
know
is.
that, but why is it so like it's plot points of like different movies?
I mean, that's just a superstition that Laura Linney had in the Truman Show, right? Like that. I mean, yeah, it doesn't really mean anything.
I guess. I guess.
You
I
got to
just
send the
think
you got
that's
to send the
funny.
paperwork, and their paperwork probably didn't make it to a notary. Wasn't notarized and didn't make it to the proper authorities. I think that studio wasn't that studio in China or something.
Oh, I don't know where it was.
Anyway,
But yeah,
so their first flight out of Germany is on a blimp, and they
it just so happens, isn't it the Heisenberg,
the Hindenburg.
the Hindenburg?
I don't think so. I think it's just a blimp. Does it say
Oh,
Hindenburg?
I don't know.
So
Does the
anyway,
Hindenburg say Hindenburg? I don't know.
so there's some Nazis running up. It's that one colonel running up to stop them and look around. He throws him off the blimp and looks at everyone and said, "No
No
ticket."
ticket.
So good. But then they take off immediately as the Nazis thrown out. They're like, "All right, let's go." And when you see them take off, there's a little prop plane underneath, and I was like, "Oh, that's gonna pay off
Yeah.
immediately."
Also, did no one question that the ticket guy just took off his jacket and just sat down with everyone else?
Yeah, whatever. I mean, they couldn't do anything. They just punched a guy off a plane. What are they? Who's gonna say something to him?
True.
The
I love
lady?
how they just throw up all their tickets. Like, ticket.
By the way, my thing about Sean Connery's character in this, he has a line where he says, "You left just when you were becoming interesting."
Yeah.
All right, that's a point for me.
That's a point for
So
you. That's a narcissism thing.
anyway, so they start to turn around and they're like, "All right." They figured out the radio was dead, so I guess he killed the radio, so they couldn't radio to the blimp to tell them, "Hey, come back here." So they get out of the plane. Sean Connery shoots his own plane down. The way that the one plane goes through the tunnel and it passes the car and they're looking at him is hilarious. To then the other one being killed by birds is also hilarious.
Sean Connery, it's so funny because Indiana does so many cool things and he doesn't get his dad's approval. But then he fucking scares birds into a plane for it to crash, and he's supposed to like it's like the fucking coolest thing, which it is, but I don't know. I wish he looked at Indiana Jones like, hey, wasn't that cool? And then Indy was like, meh.
I mean, when you're on the spectrum, it's hard for you to show love to your family. So next we see they're riding with Salah, and then the Nazis come to. I was at this point I didn't know where this was happening because I'd missed it, but it's what Have or whatever. I thought it was like Jordan, which it is actually filmed in Jordan because the temple is Petra.
Yeah.
But the guy, they bring him a bunch of cash, and he's like, nah, this Rolls Royce, that's what I want.
It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome Rolls Royce, except for the swastika detailing. It's pretty cool.
He was probably fine with it. And he then is like, all right, I'm going to give you a bunch of tanks and shit. And I was like, those tanks are probably worth more than Rolls. Why don't you just buy a fucking Rolls Royce? Like, what are you? Anyway. So then they're watching the Nazis, and Indiana Jones is like, has this line because his dad's like, get down. And he's like, we're well out of range. And they shoot the car past them. And then this leads to like a 10-15 minute awesome fucking scene with the tank.
It's a long one, but it is pretty cool. You get a lot of chances for Sean Connery to do something, and he never really does anything.
Yeah, so Sean Connery gets in the tank, but then immediately gets captured and gets slapped around. He gets slapped around, and then finally he grabs the Nazis, and he's like, basically tells them off. I can't remember what the line was. then the Brotherhood shows up and they attack, and so Indiana's like, all right, let's steal a truck. Because right before that, Donovan's like, well, if they don't have a car, they're just going to die out here. And then Indiana's like, yeah, we need to go steal something. But instead of a truck, he steals horses. Did you notice the Wilhelm scream in the middle of that?
Um, I have before, not in this past viewing, but I have before.
So, and then the last, Kazim, when he dies, is like, for the unrighteous, the cup holds damnation, which
Hmm.
foreshadowing. So then this tank scene with Indy on the horse is awesome. As they're shooting at him, then he, like the little rascal, sticks a rock in the cannon and it blows it up. It's just great. The way he's hanging off the side of the cannon at one point,
Coming
they're gonna
up to
drive
like
in,
a rock wall, yeah.
and then Marcus and Sean Connor, Professor, Indy's dad in the tank, like kind of dealing with those other guys, and then the fight on top of the tank, and then the tank going overboard with the Nazis, just his body in the tank and his head out. It was like pretty cool. And he's like, I just needed 5 minutes to tell him how I feel, and then Indiana walks up and he's like, "Come on, you're alive. It wasn't that bad." As like he's like, well, he's the one who fucking saved you and like went through the most. And then we make it to the Canyon of the Crescent Moon, and when we get to the thing, I'm like, oh, that's just Petra. So this is just Petra, but we're gonna pretend it's something else.
No, it's the secret hidden temple thing, yeah.
Yeah, and somehow the Nazis beat them there, and they just
I didn't get that. I want to talk about that. How do the Nazis beat them there? Because the only thing I can think of is like they're still riding by horseback, and the Nazis have cars.
I think they do a weird thing with timing to trick you, right? So like the Nazis, like the scenes, so they show the scenes where like the Nazis are outside of the canyon and they're like, "Oh, there's the canyon."
Right.
And then you see Indy riding his horses in the canyon, but we have no idea of like what time has passed. So it's just sort of a trick of that.
But so much time has passed because as they're witnessing the guy like sacrificing himself going through the first trial, there's two other dead bodies, which means that they've already sacrificed, like they've already had two volunteers go and die, is how long it took them to catch up with them.
Yeah, so they just keep sending Middle Easterner after Middle Easterner from the Republic of Hatay over and over to die. And the last guy comes out, his head just gets lopped off and thrown out. And then Ford they find them and they're like, you're gonna go in there. And he points a gun at him. He's like, shooting me isn't gonna work. And he's like, you're right. And then he shoots the dad. And he's like,
Yep.
now you have to fucking get the Grail. Which I'm curious. He probably wouldn't have let him use the Grail on the dad if, you know what I mean? But he died. Donovan dies, right? And so when he comes out with the Grail, all the other guys are like, I don't know. I mean, he said he could save him with it, so we're not going to stop it. Like, most of the Nazis aren't even there. It's just like the locals. And they're like, we don't have a fucking dog in this fight. Like, we don't care about this.
Most of the Nazis die in the tank fight.
Right, the tank.
It's only Ilsa and Donovan that are really left.
So we now get to the three, trials, and it says the penitent man will pass, and then at the
penitent.
So and the last second, he's like, I have to kneel. And there's a cool detail. It does not matter. There's no real payoff unless you like read into it. And there's a blade. There's two blades, and the one blade is if you don't kneel, it's going to take your head off, and then the other blade will take your head off if you put your head to the ground. Because a Christian would kneel with just kneeling with his head up, his or her head up, and a Muslim would kneel with his head on the ground and would chop the head off if it was a Muslim person.
So no Muslims allowed in that.
Well, they just got to know the rules, baby. They got to know the rules.
I found it unnecessary.
This
how
is
many?
Jesus' cup.
I found it unnecessary how many times Sean Connery says penitent.
Well, he's dying. I give him a pass. So the next thing is the name of God, but it's in Latin, and he's like, it starts with an I. And then Harrison Ford almost dies. He's like, fuck, Latin, it starts with an I.
Yeah. And then it's the invisible bridge that's not really invisible.
Yeah, which is like, it looks like it's almost painted to just be the color of the wall. I don't know. You just got to accept it works, but I don't understand the logistics of it.
I don't know what would have been cooler, that or if it was just an invisible bridge. Like if it was just glass or something. And
then kind of the last little fake out is you go in there, you see like a knight armor from the back and like, oh, just like a guy who died in here. And then he fucking turns around. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm one of the 3 brothers that are protecting this. He's like, that's 700 years ago. He's like, yeah, I've been waiting here a long fucking time, Indy.
For
You're my
you.
replacement. Yeah, you're
For
my replacement.
you. I love, and I we've seen this before, right? And I'm pretty sure we've seen it in Monty Python, right? But like the lore of the Grail is that it's not like the most decorative cup. It's not the fanciest cup. It's probably the most basic looking bitch cup, right? And do you think Ilsa knew
She
she was
did.
giving Donovan the wrong cup?
Yeah, she winked at Indy. She gave him a look, like the unknowing nod. That,
Oh,
yeah,
I thought that might have been like hey, after all this, if we're still alive.
because she still doesn't know which one it is, but she knew it wasn't. Well, no, no, no. The movie actually tells us because after Donovan dies, she says it wouldn't be made of gold,
Yeah.
and that was that one. I like. So he's like, "Let me choose," and she's like, "Thank you, doctor." And he just trusts her too much. Like he didn't see her crying at the book burning, otherwise he would have known.
Yep.
I also felt like that scene was like, let's redo the Nazi face melting scene, but better. You know what I mean? Like,
I see that. Actually, I did read something about that scene where most of that is done practically,
yeah,
where like it's a dummy, right? Where the hair is pushed through and everything like that. I thought that was really cool.
it kind of reminds me of that one cut in Home Alone 2, I think, or 1. I can't remember.
Oh, where he's electrified?
He's electrified, and then for one cut, it's a skeleton.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like after he dies and his bones just bash against the rocks, the fucking knight is like, he chose poorly.
So he comes out with the cup, right? Okay, so then
Well, you forgot about the knight. Then, as Harrison Ford drinks it, before we get to see if he dies, he's like, "You chose wisely." So there's no. He's like, "Yeah, you did it right. I'm not. I trust you that you got
but
this right."
Harrison Ford drank from the cup?
Yeah, he did.
So Harrison Ford is now invincible.
Well, there's this line from the Grail. The Grail can't pass beyond the Great Seal. That is the price of immortality. I was almost wondering if like he loses his immortality by leaving
Oh, I think he does, and
cave.
that's why the last brother never left.
Yeah, because he couldn't. Because he could. Well, and also he was guarding it. But yeah, so um,
And then he gives it to his dad, which heals him, but I guess
he also has to
doesn't
pour it on the skin.
doesn't give him immortality. Like it's weird that you drink it, you have immortality. You leave, you lose immortality. If you heal from it and you leave, you should just die from the wounds that it healed, right?
That's not how the cup works. I mean,
Okay.
we learned that in this movie
Yeah, I guess so. And then the ground opens up below them.
because Elsa tries to take it, and he's like, "Don't fucking take it." Which also though could just ran out with it, and you probably would have made it. It's like the cup can't go past the seal, and it's like she went past the seal. Um, and it's interesting, like, so she dies not because she's a Nazi, but because of her lust for this prize. They call it a prize.
Yeah.
Like that's what kills her. And then Indy almost dies too, and the dad's like, "No, just stop." And he's grabbing at it because of his father, right? Like
Yeah.
this isn't something he cared about. His father cared about this.
No, but
And
his father's healed. Oh, you mean his obsession.
and his dad's like, "Let it go. Let's
Right.
go."
And it's amazing character growth on both end because finally he gets it. Like he gets and accepts what his father has been striving for all these years. And then on Sean Connery's end, he's like, you're finally, after all these fucking years, you're finally more important to me than this thing I've been obsessing with.
I thought so. And then the guard waves at them, like, "All right, I guess I'm dying now. That's cool. It's been a while. I've been by myself. No books. Just been fucking kneeling here for 700 fucking years, guys."
I mean,
Um,
after a while, after like maybe 200-300 years, you're just like, whatever.
I think he probably takes like sojourns out. He's like, "No one's finding this shit." Um, he has to check the blades to make sure they're still sharp. They can still chop necks.
After like 250 years of just jacking off, he's just like, "Ah, I'm just over this."
I thought Connery was going to become the next knight to
I
guard
thought
the
so
cup.
too. Every time I watch, I'm like, this is what they're leading up to.
And so in the end, once again, he doesn't find shit. he finds that he doesn't get to like he doesn't keep the artifact like up until I guess the first 4 movies. The only artifact he ever recovers in a movie is the Coronado Cross.
Yeah.
So
Well, have you ever seen the 5th one?
no,
Yeah, it's only ever been the Coronado Cross, man.
oh nice. So it's like a running gag. So but he finds the cup and then helps get like destroy the place like where it's being protected. All the people that protect it were shot by Nazis in the desert. Like you guys didn't do like nothing good here.
So much for it belongs in a museum, huh?
Yeah. So then at the end we find out that he's actually Henry Jr. and the dog was named Indiana and
He named
yeah.
himself after the dog. So it was a good dog.
It was a great dog. So a little bit of the fun facts of this. So when George Lucas first came to Spielberg about the third, he wanted to have it set in a haunted mansion, which is
Okay.
fucking absurd.
It is.
That is so stupid. And the only I guess Spielberg was like, I just did Poltergeist. I don't want to do any of that. Sir Laurence Olivier was considered for the Grail Knight, but at that point he was too sick, and he died shortly after the movie's release. So that would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
This movie was the most expensive film of 1989. It cost $48 million to make this entire movie.
That's insane because that's kind of like a low budget movie nowadays.
That's like they're like, oh, you want to make this movie? I don't know, 40. He's like, what's the budget? It's like 48 million. Oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah, that's fine. At the time of its release, this was the third highest grossing film behind E.T. and Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Jeez, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg really had the 80s on lock, huh?
Yeah. Originally, Elsa was going to be the one who shoots Sean Connery, and she was going to drink from the wrong grail. And then
was it always supposed to be Sean Connery as the dad?
That was the plan. Yeah, that was Spielberg's first choice. So
yeah.
And then there were other options for the Elsa character, but one of the women, I didn't recognize her name because this is an older movie and I wasn't born. But she apparently dropped out because she like read the rat scene. She's like, I have a fear of rats. I can't do it. So
how could that stop you from being in an Indiana Jones movie? I mean, I have a horrible fear of snakes, and snakes are bound to show up in the Indiana. And if they were like, yeah, you'd have to be the fat little kid to be scared of that snake, or you'd have to. I'm casting you as young Indiana Jones, right? And you're gonna have to fall into a pit of snakes. I'm like, okay, I'll get over it real quick.
Like the young fat kid, you're just gonna take Short Round's role. That's really.
What in this movie in Last Crusade?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but Short Round could have made an appearance. That's crazy to me that he's only in the second one, and he just appears and he's like, "Yeah, this is fucking Short Round, man. He's been with me forever."
Yeah, I know, and it's such a perfect opportunity in the fifth one. I'm just minor spoilers for the fifth one. It wasn't even that good, but at the end of the movie, he is making like peace with his family. Like he's tying up a bunch of loose ends from all the other movies. He's tying up a bunch of loose ends, and Short Round never comes into play. And I'm like, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I like how you're like, this is a minor spoiler, and you're like, so at the end of the movie. So I gotta watch one soon, but as of now, this is my favorite one.
No, one is really fucking good, but
yeah,
there's something about this one that is so clever, and the dialogue is so smart in the way it like lays out everything. The jokes are funny. And it's an easy watch too. It's like what, right under 2 hours?
2:08.
Yeah.
But all of these have flown. Like even 2 to me flew by. This one did certainly. It was like a very easy, fun watch. But just like, the Haunted Mansion idea, how are you going to have set piece after set? Like all these action set pieces are impossible in that scenario. It's just like insane.
Well, what do you mean like Haunted Mansion, like one location, different rooms in the Haunted Mansion?
I guess that's what doesn't mean that's what the thing says. I don't know. I'm not in
Have you
George Lucas's mind.
have you seen the new Haunted Mansion movie?
No.
It's I actually liked it a lot, and the way you're describing like multiple set pieces within the mansion is kind of the way they did it.
How are you gonna have a tank chase? How are you gonna boat race in Venice?
No, but I think I don't think his idea was any of that.
I know it would have sucked. That's my point.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. I'm Milan.
And this is David, and I finally watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.